What are we talking about here? What makes an effective photograph? What's an effective photograph? You decide what an effective photograph is, right? I say aesthetics and story are what add to an effective photograph. Effective, that's up to you, that definition. But these are kind of the two areas that we've been leaning on as we build out this whole series. Today, we're going to be talking about light and exposure. So we're kind of moving forward. We're going from surface level, we're getting out of the gear and the technical stuff, and we're getting into really the meat and potatoes of what photography is. I mean, we know what photography means, right? I know you know what photography means. If you break down the word, right? Yeah, right? It has light right in the word. So light is the essence of every photograph. The quality, quantity, and direction of light define how we see form and mood. Your camera is not capturing objects. It's capturing how light reflects them, right? How the light bounces off of the object. So for this light section, well, what do you think we're going to be focusing on? These 4 qualities of light, or excuse me, 3 qualities. So we're going to be focusing on the quality, the quantity, and the direction. Now again, this is surface level. As we dive in, you're going to see a lot of intersections where there's color, right? I kind of toyed with throwing color in here, and I'm like, well, we're doing a section on color later. We can talk about color of light later. For now, I kind of want to focus on what is light? How do we create light? How do we see light? How do we shape light? Me and my charts. The further the light source, the harder the light. The closer the light source, the softer the light, right? So when we talk about hard light, sharp shadows, your textures are crisper, it's more contrasty, bold, dramatic, right? I know we see these down at the bottom. Is there anything that you don't see there when you think hard light? What comes to mind when you think hard light? You guys are quiet today. What happened to my talkative crowd from the last couple weeks?
I think it's glare. I think it's glare. Something harsh.
Glare, harsh, right? In your face. Reflections, right? So reflection can or can't, right? Because anything that bounces, when I think bounce, I think soft. So when you think hard light, think direct. Think unimpeded. If I shine a flashlight on your face, is that going to be flattering? Right? A lot of times we think of light in terms of, is it flattering on a person's face or is it not? That's why with soft light, large diffused source, smooth transitions, gentle shadows. Hard light, middle of the day. When do we usually see soft light outside? Overcast. Blue hour, right? Beginning of the day, end of the day, before the sun, you know when that sun starts to rise, but it's still behind the horizon, and you just get that light creeping up over, right? You can have some soft light there. The light that comes off a field of snow, back to reflection. That's a reflection, right? Your light is bouncing off of snow. What color is snow? White. So are we starting to put these pieces together when we're talking about, you know, all the things of, you know, when we take a portrait and use a bounce card, right? Or you see a reflector. You ever be walking down the street? So that's soft light. So you asked if that's hard or soft. That's soft. Anything that's bouncing, it's not direct, right? Welcome, welcome. You ever walk down the street, or great spot to see it is when you walk down the High Line. If you get on the High Line at the northernmost tip and walk south in the middle of the day, and people are walking towards you, they have the most beautiful light on them. You know why? Because the light is hitting off of these giant glass buildings and bouncing that light back onto them. So is that soft or is that hard? It's going to be softer. It's going to be softer. Even though it says right here, hard light, direct sunlight. You know, when we think sunlight, we think harsh light. Okay? And when we think soft, we think, how many people think a softbox? You know, we know what a softbox is, do we? No? Does anybody not know, and you don't feel like you have to? So a softbox. Who's seen a photo shoot go on, and they have that big light source, and sometimes it's like a big octagonal shape, or a circle, or a square, and it has that white piece over it, and it just looks like this big white light. So a softbox is a light box, very much like this. It looks like that. They don't have a softbox on here. A lot of times you'll see a light source, and it'll have a piece of diffusing fabric over it, or multiple layers of diffusing fabric. And all that is doing is it's cutting down the light and it's spreading the light so that it's not as direct, to give a softer, more enveloping look. So, right, soft light, it kind of wraps around. When we take a flash on camera and we shoot it right at somebody, is it flattering? I know it's in trend now. The younger generation brought back the Terry Richardson look. Let you decide if you like it or not. But what do we do a lot of times with a flash? Which way do we point it? Does anybody shoot events? Up, right? Why are we pointing it up? To bounce it. We want to bounce it off of something. Now, if I were to bounce it off of here, wouldn't get very far, right? Because of this next slide. I want you to all read this to yourselves and kind of process this for a moment. And I love that you guys are an honest class. If you're confused by this, I'm going to explain. Does this make sense to you guys, or is it kind of a jumbled, confusing word salad sentence? Who wants to try to explain this? Anybody? What are we talking about here? All right, that's what I'm here for. I'll explain it. Right, we're talking about size of light source. We're talking about direct light. Bigger the light source, right? So if I have a big light source like the sun, is it always hard light? No. How do you make a giant direct source of light like the sun, soft light? Put something between it. Like what? Nearby building. Lucky's doing extra. He's like, take your jacket off, block it. Yes. A cloud, right? Look out there. Do we see the sun right now? It's still up. It's 4 o'clock. It hasn't set yet. Look at the light as people are passing by. Depending on if they're facing this way, where the sun is over there on the west side, that cloud is diffusing the light, right? So it's also determined by the distance. That word right there, distance, it matters so much. Can I borrow, who has a piece of white paper? Can I borrow your notebook for a second? I will not say anything noteworthy, I promise, right? You see the shadow. Who can see the shadow on here, right? Can any of you in the back see it? You'll have to be my eyes for the class, right? So I'm right up here. I'm on the light source, right? As I get further and further away, what's happening to the shadow? It's fading out, right? So, I'm sorry, here. Let me do this. Right? Did you guys see it over here? Which side saw it? You guys could see it? All right, for you guys over here, just so you can see, right? Just how it matters, right? Up close. And look what's happening there, right? If I keep it the same distance, which I wasn't before, what's happening as it's getting further? It's a trick. Who knows what I did? When I went over there, I moved my hand away. Kept it the same distance here, right? Because it's all relative. Because what's happened? I just got everybody on that side of the room to give me the wrong answer so confidently. You know why? It's a trick question. I love my tricks. That's how we learn, though. All right? If I keep it the same distance, okay, and I don't move my hand right here, can anybody see the shadow on there?
Not too well.
But somebody in the back, is it softer? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? You're seeing my fingers come into definition, right? right? When I did it over here for you guys, sorry, you guys were the sacrificial lambs. You know, I was playing with it, pulling it away, and what was I doing? Dragging that further away, right? It's a relationship between distances, between light source to subject to background. What does that make you think of from the first couple weeks? Didn't we talk about that before? We talked about that a lot, right? The relationship of subject to camera to background. You have fall off, you have depth of field. Well, light falls off too. Not just in focus, out of focus, your light falls off as well. So the point in demonstrating that was, as we got closer to the light source, what happened, right? How many people, I mean, it makes sense. I used to think this too. Wouldn't it make sense when you get closer to a light source, it's going to be harder, right? It's right up in your face. No, the shadows are softer. The light is softer. The intensity is more, right? Inverse square law. Look up the inverse square law. I'm not going to go into the inverse square law. So there's two things that I toyed with going into, and I decided, intro, let's keep it surface level. If you guys really want to learn about light and get a full knowledge of it, look up EV, exposure value, and inverse square law. I started to go into them, and I had like 3 slides that I had to take out because I'm like, I'm going to lose them. This ship is going to go down fast. But look up exposure value and inverse square law. So the point is, the closer to the light source, softer or harder? Softer. Wow, let me hear you. Somebody yell it out. Softer, right? Closer to the light source, the softer. The further the light source, as you start to pull away from the light source, it gets harder, okay? So when we're taking portraits and somebody wants really flattering and you put a nice umbrella or softbox on, get the light as close as possible to them without being in your frame. But then what happens when you put the light closer? Who said intensity? The intensity goes up. Somebody's been coming to the event space lately. Yes, the intensity goes up. So this right here, very, very, very important. Hard light or soft light? Why? Why is that hard light? What gives it away? What tells you that this is hard light? Deep shadows. Jumping the gun. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Shadows are very defined. What's a very obvious answer? Contrast. Even more obvious. What's the light source here? The sun. Right? The sun. Did I light this with a flash? Probably not. This looks like it's just out in a parking lot, which it is, out in Vegas, in the sun. It's direct, right? You can tell by the hard shadows. Boom. Hard light, soft light. Hard light. What do we see here? Right? See how shaped that is? That shadow's right there. What does the direction of the shadows tell you here? Where's the light? It's kind of up overhead, like this, right? Probably starting to get into the later half of the day, but not so, like mid-afternoon. Right? So what does that tell you? It's mid-afternoon. Does it look like a cloudy day? It's all these little cues, right? And it's this. This is why we're here. We're here to learn about these cues and how to read light. Again, hard light, right? We're looking at our shadows here, very defined. These are all sunlight, very easy. This one. Soft light. What gives it away? Shadows on her face. See the gradation? It's a very slight gradation. Where is she sitting? Indoors with a window, right? Window light is inherently soft light, right? It's directional. It's diffused. She's off of the window, so she's not getting directly hit. Soft, yep, cloudy day. You can see up here. What is this? What about the tonal value? I'm going to kind of jump the gun a little bit. We'll get to all that later, but I'll see if anybody see where our heads are at. Tonal value. When I say tonal value, what am I talking about? Is there a lot of contrast in terms of light versus dark here? It's pretty even, right? It's pretty even keeled. See how it's even exposure? Nothing's really bright, bright, bright. Even up here, yes, it's way brighter than everything else, but it still has a light gray tone to it, right? It's not completely washed out to white. Everything's pretty even. Soft shadows there. Do we see any catch lights in his eyes? There's no catch lights in his eyes? No, we have a slight shadow from the brim. See, even the brim up under the brim is not fully dark. It's a soft gradation. There's still some light. There's just light in the air. Whenever it's hazy, whenever it's rainy, those light particles are getting trapped. And again, soft. All right? Same thing as the last photograph. The tonal value is pretty even. You don't really have, even out here, the whites and the waves. It's not overpowering. Everything's pretty balanced. There you go. Now you can say it. Light direction. She was talking about light direction. I'm like, hold on. You guys get a copy of my notes every week. I got to find out who on my team is giving them up. The angle of light in relation to your subject is easy. Direction, where is light coming from? So we're going to keep it simple. We're going to talk about 3 directions. Front, side, backlight. What's an example of front light? Now, I gave some portraiture examples here because that's a very easy way, and a lot of times when we talk about light direction, how many people here are portrait photographers or like to take pictures of people? I don't care if it's even just like, hey, I'm at a family event. Probably most of you, right? Who takes, or yourself, pictures of yourself? This is where it's very important to know light direction when you're taking pictures of people. Why? What's different about people? You ever walk up to a building or have a building walk up to you and be like, oh my God, I look horrible in that photo? If you did, I want to know, whatever you were having, I want some. People have flattering light, they have unflattering light, there's different features. Has anybody come to one of my open studios or one of my lighting workshops? Michael has, I know you have, right? What do we always talk about? What's some of the things we talk about when we talk about portraiture and lighting? So many things. Angles, softness, hardness, features, right? I have a big nose. If you don't light it the right way, guess what? I'm going to have a shadow that's going to go like into my ear. I have to be lit the right way. Some people have recessed eyes. Some people have flatter faces. Some people have rounder faces. Different features. That's where we really pay attention to light direction. But understanding light direction in general helps us on any scene. Is light direction going to matter much out here? No, it's pretty flat. So our front light, that's where we get into our butterfly and our clamshell lighting, our direct flash. Anybody shoot with on-camera flash? Point and shoot cameras, on-camera flash? That's direct. It's just right coming from the front. Side light is going to give you a more dimension or a sculpted look. Right? When I stand here, if I were to flag off this light, right, I'm going to get shadow on this side of my face. It's going to give me more dimension. It's going to give me more edge, more contrast. It's going to give a more interesting look than if I just get blasted with light and everything's even. For most people, to each their own. That's where you're going to do your Rembrandt, your loop lighting, broad lighting, short lighting, split lighting. There's a lot of different types of lighting in portraiture that you're being lit from the sides. Backlighting, it's mysterious, it can be ethereal. How would you use backlight to make an image ethereal? Right? Soft, kind of warm, glowy. Sunset's a great time. Sunset's a great time, right? Because how was the light? The light's low. A lot of people want it in the frame. That's a perfect example. And then what would you do? You have the sunlight, right? The light shining into your camera. And then we're going to talk about exposure, but I'll kind of jump the gun a little bit. Yeah, brighten your exposure up. Backlighting is great for when you have harsh light and you want to take a picture of somebody outside and you don't have shade. Shoot into the light. If you shoot into the light, everything is going to be even. Right? You're not going to have shadows on the face. If the light is behind somebody, you're going to have to bump the exposure up because now you have all this light flowing into your camera sensor. Don't worry, we're going to go over exposure. But that's a little cheat code for shooting in difficult light. If you're taking photographs of people and you don't have another light source, you don't have anything to bounce back, put the light behind them and up your exposure. Please do not underestimate the power of the light direction. As I said, it can be very, very, very unflattering. It can also be very dynamic. What is dynamic about directional light? What draws your eye? What's dynamic in a photo, in a portrait? The relationship of light and shadow. When we see long shadows at the end of the day, is that more interesting than when there's no shadow on the ground? Leading lines. It creates motion. Remember what we talked about with composure? Taking your eye on a journey around the screen? We're going to see some images here where we have long shadows. And you're going to see that you have the subject or an object, and that's one part, and then the shadow kind of fills the negative space. I use long shadows at the end of the day and the beginning of the day to fill negative space all the time, to create more dynamic motion. It's motion without motion, right? You're capturing it still, but your eye is following the shadows. What kind of light is this? As far as direction. Front. I already got my trick question out of the way, so I'll tell you that now. That was the trick earlier, and I got an entire half of the room, so I'm good. I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward right now. So yeah, front lighting. Welcome, welcome. Backlit, right? How do we know it's backlit? We see it right there. Who said silhouette? Silhouette gives it away right there. And again, we're talking with a lot of these photos, in case I have any wise guys out there that are going to be like, well, this is also, you got light bouncing off of here, and yes, you're right. Question?
I'm just curious, if you take a picture with the lens directly at the sun, will that ruin the camera?
If you take a picture directly at the sun with the lens, will that ruin the camera? No. It'll ruin your eyes.
Oh, okay. But if the camera is in front of your eyes.
Don't look directly at the sun.
No, but if the camera.
The camera, technically you're not supposed to point it. All right, let me recant that. Cooper, strike that from the record because I don't want to be on the internet giving absolutes. Yes, you might spontaneously combust because you know what's going to happen. Someone's going to go out and do it in their camera, and I'm going to be all over Petapixel saying, no, you can do it. They say not to point it directly at the sun without protection. Can you harm? Pointing anything at the sun is not a good idea. The sun is the sun for a reason. And there's a reason why it's millions or billions or whatever. I'm not into that. It's a far away, right? Get a filter. Get a polarizing filter. If you're going to point at the sun, you're going to want to get a lot of stops. So 16 stop, 32 stop, depending on what you're photographing. You can get solar spots. It's cool. I have I think a 32 stop filter that goes up to 32 stops, and I'll get sunspots. And yes, will I use it beyond that? No. You take one picture of the sun, it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to set up shots and post? No. So don't point your camera at the sun. If you have a really good reason, an eclipse, point at the sun. It's protected. But for all intents and purposes, are you going to blow your camera up if you point at the sun? Probably not. Your eyes, yeah, you'll lose your eyesight. You'll shoot your eye out. Where's the light direction? Side. All right, I kind of tried to trick you guys here. Because there's somebody out there, you don't have to admit it, keep your hand down, I don't want to put you on blast. Somebody out there is like, well, it's hitting him from the front, so it's front lighting. Is anybody thinking that? Come on, no, I'm joking, I'm not looking. But that's why we do this, right? The angle of the camera is over here. My subject is here. He's facing this way, right? The light's hitting him from the side. You can see what kind of shadow here? Soft, diffused, right? It's right under here. Remember we talked about reading what's in an image? And for those of you who have taken our lighting workshops, We reverse engineer photographs to see how they were photographed and how they were lit. We look at the catch lights, we look at the shadows, we look at the direction of the shadows, we look at how soft the shadow is. So everyone in this room, given that information, should be able to tell us where the light is coming from here. And look at what's in the image. What do we see right here? What kind of material does that look like? Metal. And what do we see on the metal? We see light reflected on there. So what's the other side of this guy probably look like? It's probably lit up, right? This is how we engineer and understand lighting in a photograph. I know it sounds boring, but you have to sit there and you have to piece these things together and understand how light works. Coming from this way? From the front of him? No, not a dumb question at all. I'm going to let you answer it. Think about it for half a second. What would make the light look as if it's coming from this direction, like front lighting? It's bouncing. What's probably on the other side of this street here? Another building, glass, something reflective. That's why a lot of these the examples, you know, I don't have one. I actually love when I have someone in my class that's like, no, that's front lighting and side. And it's like, yeah, this is probably front, side, and back all at once, just because of how it's reflecting. But we're looking for the most part, right? Where's that main light source coming there? When we talk about key light, fill light, that would be more of like a fill light. We're getting a bounce. That's kind of, because otherwise what would happen? If we had no bounce, what would happen back here? There'd be no light, there'd be no exposure. It would be completely dark back here. Direction, where's the light coming from? Backlit. So this is what I was talking about when I had really difficult sunlight here. This was one of my first photography mentors, and I really didn't want to take a bad picture of him. And he was like, totally going through it, and then wants me to take pictures, and it's like the worst light. So what did I have to do? I put the light behind him. He has nice light eyes. What do you see on his face here as far as shadows are concerned? Soft, there's no shadows, right? There's no shadow under here. It's all soft. The light is behind him. It's kind of wrapping around him. I overexpose this, right? And again, we're going to get to exposure, so that the idea is to first understand how light works, then we learn how to shape light, right? Blown out. If I exposed for that highlight right there, what would happen to his face? It would be dark. Exactly. Light direction. Front light. All right, what are we looking at? Easiest thing, right there. Shadow. Side light. Kind of a trick, kind of a not. Talk through the lighting in here. Reflected backlight. I like that. What's behind him? A big white truck, buildings. Now, what is assisting in this silhouette here? What is flagging off the light? The roof. Who said roof over here? Good job. The roof is flagging off. Where is it flagging off light from? Pretty much front, this side. He's going to be getting some light spill through the front here. That's why his arm has some light on it. So he said he would argue that he's not lit at all. What would you say to that? Anybody? Well, if he's not, there has to be some light, right? Because what would it look like if there wasn't? Cooper, turn the TV off. No, I'm joking. There's ambient light here.
So the level, is it nighttime? No. Therefore, there is light. Therefore, something is going to be lit. Now, if you look at the wheels, the reflections in the wheels will say, look at those beautiful highlights. Where's all that light coming from?
Exactly.
Same light that's not really hitting him because he's in the shadow.
What's hitting the front here, right?
Yeah.
We have a big specular right here. Light's hitting the front. We're also getting light reflect. So I would argue that you're, rather than no direction, no light, all directions, with the caveat of what? It's being flagged off. He's got a giant V flat over top of him. Do we know what a flag is? So a flag is anything that blocks light, right? This can be a flag. If I take the light and I want to flag off here, what do? Do you see a difference in light? All right? It's not some professional thing. You can't go up and buy this in the lighting department, but it's acting as a flag, right? Now, if my sleeve were white, what would that act as? A reflector, right? So it's just simple terms, you know, it's physics, right? What does light bounce? Light bounces off of certain colors in a different way. Certain materials are more reflective and bounce light better than others. Certain materials and certain colors absorb more light. Again, so way more. We're gonna, after my 7-part series, I do want to continue and go past intro and get you guys into discussing light in more depth. But that's down the road. Thank you. Backlight, right? Very easy. So we're starting to see, the light's easy to see here, but it's not just about calling out where the light is from, right? It's not about, like, great, cool, we know it's backlight. That's very easy. Anybody could look at that. What are we really looking for in this? The effect of the light. What is the light doing? What is it shaping? How is it treating colors? How is it treating the relationship between light and dark, between highlights and shadows and midtones? How is it creating contrast or not creating contrast? F11? On the past one? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, this is a little more. I wanted to go for the starburst effect. There you go. Michael knows. You get that starburst, you got to stop down. All right? Backlight. Obviously, we have some ambient in the front. But the main effect here I was going for, see the rim lighting here? Do we know what rim lighting is? Anybody not know what rim lighting is? So rim lighting is when you get that edge of light. See how it's like a rim of light? That is created by putting a light source behind your subject. See how it has a nice effect? It looks nice, right? But what does it also do? In addition to looking nice, it serves a purpose. It separates the subject from the background. So in areas like this, sometimes you'll have a similar color. If you have a person wearing a black shirt and they're on a dark backdrop, why would we add a rim light? Because without a rim light, the black shirt on the black backdrop, what's going to happen? I'm going to wash away. I'm going to look like a floating head. So a rim light looks nice, so it has the aesthetic, but it also carries a purpose. How do you add a rim light? Well, you can add light to any scene. Here, this is my son, I simply faced him away from the sun. So remember we talked about photographing, looking into the sun? When I turned him around the other way, I was getting shadows on his face. It wasn't flattering. I put the sun behind him. The sun was right up here. Put the sun behind him and see how even it is? I had enough ambient light bouncing back where you can see some lightness in his eyes. You can see a little catch light there. Sometimes, if you don't have enough of a light source hitting them from the front, the eyes will go a little dark. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Here, again, I'm getting light bouncing back in. You see when the situations when I'm using this? And I wanted to show a couple of these for a reason. Because so many people, especially I find with beginners, they're afraid to point into the sun. What do we always want to do? Oh, well, the light should be hitting our subject, right? We learned that the light should be hitting our subject. How many people have learned that put your back to the sun and shoot into the sun? All right, a couple of us. How many people have always heard or thought that, no, you face your subject to the sun, face them to the light, you want the light hitting them, right? Probably a couple people have heard or been taught that as well. Again, I don't like to deal in absolutes because there are times when it's backlit and it doesn't, because the whole scene matters. Here, was I worried about blowing all this out? Obviously not. I was focused really on here. Why was I focused right here? Remember that first slide where there was two pictures, aesthetic and story? Because there was a whole lot of story influencing this decision and a little bit of aesthetic. The aesthetic was that I wanted nice even light, but this was a photo that was taken because of story.
Would you have taken it if you'd been wearing white and pink, light pink stripes?
Such a great question. So would you have taken that if you were wearing white and pink stripes? I love the way your brain works. That's what we should be doing. Because how does that affect the decision making? Just throw it out to the class. You tell me, chat. White and pink shirt, would I have lit it the same way? What problem would I have run into? The same way that I would disappear here on a dark backdrop, what would happen to him? That white shirt would wash into this. And then what would I have to do? I'd have to pivot. I'll tell you exactly what I would have done. Who knows? My answer is in the photo. Come on, Lucky, don't let me down here. The answer is in the photo. What would I have done if he was wearing a white shirt? Yep. Say that louder. Go underneath the roof, right? Boom. Solace is only a 10-foot walk away. I get even light under there. I get protection from the sun. More importantly, what did we just discuss? Light, what? Direction. I get directional light. If he's under here, what's happening? There's no light hitting him directly. I got light coming in and spilling in from the sides. And what does that do? What kind of light? Soft light. Why? Why is it soft? Because it's bouncing. What direction is it coming from? The side, which adds what? Dimension. We starting to see how, I'm giving you guys my secret sauce. None of you better go put me out of business. See one of you guys email in the event space like, hey, I'd like to teach a class here. It's all these pieces that we're putting together. That's why you can't just go take one intro to photography class and just boom, we're gonna rush everything and da 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 da. You have to break it and layer it and build it.
Does the color of the paint also change your perspective of lighting? Like if you had lighter skin, would it also change the photo?
So great question, another great question. Does the color of the skin change the lighting? Color of skin, what does that roughly equate to? Tone. It's a tonal range. Everything's a tonal range, right? You can have black skin, brown skin, green skin, yellow skin, right? And is it darker? Is it lighter? Right? All skin tones are colors. It's really just a tonal range. So of course it matters. If somebody has darker skin and they're out in the bright sun, I'm gonna have to treat that differently than if somebody has pasty white skin and they're out in the sun, right? The pasty white skin out on that beach shot, they might kind of blend in. It might be an even exposure. So as I bring down the exposure for the face and I have them standing on the sand, what's gonna happen? Well, guess what? It's kinda, right? You take my skin color and I'm standing in front of a beach with sand. As you bring the exposure down on my face, it's pretty similar to the sand. If you had somebody who had like a medium brown, dark skin complexion on the sand, as you bring the exposure to get the face properly exposed, what's gonna happen to that sand? That sand's way lighter. Sand's gonna wash out. So yeah, great question. You always have to pay attention to skin color. Skin color is like anything else. It's the color of your subject, it really relates to how much light's being reflected, how much light do you need to make a proper exposure. A lot of this stuff will really click when we get to exposure. So what's the direction here? Very easy. Side. Remember I talked earlier about the long shadows, end of the day, right? We're filling negative space. So that's a technique that you can use. Look at the shadows, how they cut across the space here, does it take your eye and kind of, you may not realize it, but it is. You're subconsciously, these shadows are adding depth and dimension, right? Everything's going across this way. All right, before we get into exposure, we're going to discuss light quantity. So this is our third of the qualities of light. This is the intensity or the brightness. How much light is available in a scene? How much light reaches your sensor? What's the difference between those two things there? Light that's available in a scene and light that reaches your sensor. Does anybody know off the bat? Anybody want to take a guess? Is it the same question? If I have a ton of light in here, does that mean all of it's going to reach my sensor? Because I'm going to do what? I'm going to control the light, right? So we have light in the scene, intensity amount, right? We're going to learn how to control it. So light quantity directly affects our exposure. How much light do we have? If I shut the lights off in here, do we have a lot of light to work with? If I shut these two lights off, what do we have? We have light spilling from out there, and we have light coming from out there, very dimly lit. I might not have a lot of exposure, right? Or a lot of light to work with. So light is measured in stops, and each stop either halves or doubles. Again, I don't want to go crazy deep and lose you guys, because you don't need to get too deep into the technical woods. It's great for you to fully understand, but for an intro level class, look that up on your own if you really want to dive into it. As long as you have a basic understanding of light and of understanding that our stops, I mean, that is the foundation, stops, as when we're measuring light. You do have to understand that it is either going to have or double, and that'll go into your decision making of, okay, when we light subjects, boom, I just went up 2 stops. Well, if I go up 2 stops here, I have to borrow from over here to even it out. Again, we're getting closer and closer to exposure. It's like we're getting right to that point where all this stuff is going to really, I think some of you will have an aha moment once we go over exposure. So too much light, we're overexposed. Too little light, we're underexposed. Very simple. If I have too much light, way too bright. Too little light, way too dark. How do we control this, right? We control our light with our settings. Remember we talked about the exposure triangle? Aperture, shutter speed, ISO. We can control light with filters. What filters control light? We have neutral density, right? We have polarizing filters. Modifiers on lights and modifiers. Who knows what the grid up here, the egg crate does? Directs light, right? Keeps a tight beam. The softbox that we talked about earlier. If I were to throw a white sheet up in here, and then 3 feet, I threw another white sheet, what would happen? It cuts the light down, right? Super diffused, right? It's making the light softer. It's killing the intensity of the light. It decreases the quantity, exactly. So we control light in various ways. We can control it with our settings, with modifiers, filters. So I threw this back in, right? Because we're kind of back to square one. These are our settings. For those who were not here for part 1, I believe we discussed the exposure triangle, right? That's the foundation of exposure right there. Understanding the relationship. Keyword relationship. As we get further into understanding light and exposure and how they work together, you have to understand the relationship between these. There's a give and a take. So again, I'm not going to go over this slide. We went over this in part 1. But aperture, size of the opening in your lens, your shutter speed, how long your sensor is exposed to light, ISO, how sensitive your sensor is to light. It's these 3 things that make up your exposure. So now we're going to move from the qualities of light into, or the properties of light rather, into light exposure. So this is the bridge between seeing light and controlling light. Okay? We have to learn to see light before we can control it. But if we see light and we don't know what to do with it, Are we helping ourselves out? No. We're kind of just left out there like, great, I see it, but I still don't know what to do with it. We're trying to get to the point where we see it, we understand it, we know the properties and how it's shaping our scene, and then how we're going to control it. How are we going to harness the power of light to create the scenes that we want, to create effect, to create drama, to create a certain look, a mood. Shooting manual versus auto, and how is exposure affected, right? How many people shoot manual, are proficient shooting manual, right? Probably about half of you guys. How many people shoot auto, are not comfortable shooting manual? Again, no judgment here. Any auto mode. When I'm talking auto, I'm talking program, I'm talking shutter priority, aperture priority, the green box, right? No shame in it. I'm going to give you a moment to read this. Take it in. Because this is one of the most underrated things when people are learning how your camera reacts to light, how your camera reads light, and what your camera does with that information. Who really understands metering modes or pays a lot of attention to the metering modes in their camera? Way less hands went up, right? Why do we pay attention to metering modes? Why is it important? Someone who raised their hand, shout it out. Why is metering so important to you? A clue if I'm getting over or underexposed, right? This tells you exactly how your camera is processing the light and reading the light, right? Your camera's meter sees the world in tones, not colors, right? Tones, light, dark, exposure values. It's trying to balance the image at 18% gray. 18% gray is halfway between absolute dark, absolute light, right? Absolute black, absolute white, right in the middle. We're going to get there. She asked, does the camera use the entire image? So what determines how your camera measures it? Because that's a great question. I mean, isn't that the logical next question is, well, how does your camera know? How does your camera read? It's not what you're focusing on. So remember, but it's not what you're, it's, so that's focus. Focus is completely different. Yeah, we're gonna get there. Yeah, that's yes, it's where we're going. It's not focus though. That's a differentiation we got to call out because it's not. Your camera might have a mode where your exposure is taken from your focus point, but it's not focus. Focus is literally for where are we focusing? Where is my lens setting the focusing distance? Why is, Michael, I'm glad you asked that because I love, contrary to a lot of educators and photographers and professionals out there, I don't know why it's 18% gray. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you, yeah, because 50% gray, right? Doesn't it make, there's a calculation out there and there's a reason. And you know what I always do. What am I going to do next week, Lucky? Am I going to come back with an answer from Michael? I'm going to look it up. Because I'll keep it really, really, really honest with you. No. Come on. We're all friends here. You don't have to know everything to photograph well, to educate others, to inspire, right? Anybody who's out there acting like they know everything or trying to spiral to come up with an answer, no. And why do I not get caught up in this? Because am I out there really paying attention to, like, yes, does this matter? You have to know how it works. But am I out there like, oh, that's not 18%, oh, that's, right? It's understanding the concepts, how to use the concepts. The math of depth of field, right? And in my experience, I'm sorry, everyone who can recite all the equations and all that stuff are usually the worst photographers. So go learn from them at your own risk. I'd like to say I know how to take a hell of a photo, but I'm not going to tell you, I don't know why it's 18% gray. I'll get back to you. Cooper, write that one down. Cooper's over there shaking his head like, cut it. So metering modes, that's what decides. So, right, we were just talking about how does your camera know where to take the reading? Because we have metering modes in our camera. Again, these might range depending on the camera manufacturer that you have, but they're generally some form of this. We're getting to the point where like there's 6,000 different metering modes, and it's like, you know, with AI, they're probably gonna have like predictive metering in some amount of time, it'll predict the amount of light that's gonna hit in the 2.6 seconds it takes you to press the shutter from now. But for now, we have evaluative and matrix, which is basically, it's taking an average. So what is that doing? It's reading the light, it's reading the tonal ranges from your entire scene, and it's averaging. What does it want to do? What does your camera want to do? It wants to take absolute black and turn it to not 50% gray, right, Michael? And it wants to take absolute white and turn that to not 50%, but 18% gray. Okay? That's what it wants to do. And it wants to do that based on an evaluative metering, right? So if I were to take a picture right here of this group and I were to crop it right in like that, it's pretty even, right? As far as the light is kind of the same. There's not like a bright spot. There's not a dark spot. It's all dark. So it's going to level all that up together. Now, these areas where there's not much light hitting and people wearing dark clothing, it's going to want to take that area, and it's going to, so what are you going to see? You're probably going to see a longer exposure time, or you're going to have to go wide open with the aperture, or you're going to have to bump up the ISO to get that black to gray. Center weighted, guess what that is? It's taking a reading from the center. So you're taking a center of the frame, it's going to take an average reading of the tonal values that are in that range, and it's going to spit you out a computation that says, hey, we're going to balance it on the center, okay? It's going to read the entire scene. Center weighted is not just the center. So that's an important call out there. It's going to take mainly, it's going to say, you know what, I'm going to read the entire scene, but I know that the subject's in the center because the person that's using the camera wanted it to meter in the center and give that priority. So it's going to take priority from the center, but it's going to read the entire scene. And then you have spot metering. So it measures from a small spot, generally less than 5% of your frame. When would spot metering be helpful? Backlight, right? A tricky lighting scenario, right? All different kinds of light. And say you only have one person, say you have a person in the corner of your frame and you want to make sure that they're exposed properly, but you have light all over. What would you do? You'd spot meter on that person's face because you want their face to be accounted for properly. That's where you want your reading to come through. You want your subject to be properly exposed. Two very, very, very similar statements, but there's a small yet very important difference. So when you're shooting in auto mode, program, TV, AV, you know, your shutter priority, your auto, your program, all that stuff, your camera's going to measure the light in the scene based on the metering mode from the previous slide that we chose. And because you're in an auto mode, you told your camera, I want you to set the settings. So what is your camera going to do? Your camera's going to set your camera settings based on that metering mode. With the caveat that obviously if you're in TV, right, TV shutter priority, is your camera going to set the shutter speed? No. Shutter priority means you're setting the shutter, the camera's taking care of the aperture and the ISO unless you have it in auto. Same thing with aperture priority, AV. You're setting the aperture, your camera is going to take that aperture, okay, boom, Lucky set his aperture at f1.4. I have ISO to work with, and I have shutter speed to work with. So your camera, based on how you meter, is going to take a reading, and it's going to set Lucky's ISO if it's on auto, and his shutter speed to whatever gives him a proper exposure, right? And by proper exposure, what do I mean? Not 50%, 18% gray for how it's metering, right? See how it's tricky? Exposure takes time to learn and to master. TV is shutter priority on most cameras. So most cameras, they call it TV. I'm sure there might be something out there that they don't use that. But for most cameras, TV is shutter priority, AV is aperture priority. When you shoot in manual, does your meter matter? Does your camera still meter? Yes, it does. So a lot of people think it doesn't. They're like, I set the settings. You ever look through your camera, even when you're shooting in manual, and what is it doing? It's still giving you, it's telling you if you're under, if you're over. It's doing the exact same thing. It's just not doing what? It's just not locking in your settings. It's giving you the autonomy to say, screw you, I want to turn it to this, or I want to turn it to this, which is a good thing, because what does that show? That you're using intent, that you're saying, you know what? Well, it can. Some of you guys are just lost and can't help you there right now. But you're changing it for a reason.
You know, for years I shot AV mode, but just lately I'm shooting in manual because I couldn't find the picture. Sometimes I want to get motion blur, sometimes I want to get better depth of field. ISO, you know, I can pretty much fix that. Just give me more creativity.
So Michael said he for years he was shooting in aperture priority, and he found it limiting, that he got more control with manual. Well, one way to account for that is exposure compensation. Exposure compensation is how you can override what your camera is telling you to do. So I have my camera in AV mode. I'm picking my aperture, right? Lucky's at f1.4. It says 1/250th of a second at ISO 640. Okay? Well, I'm looking through the viewfinder. I've got a mirrorless camera. I'm looking through the viewfinder, and the image is still dark, or the subject is still dark. What do I need to do? Yell at my camera and tell them it's wrong? Exposure. I need to compensate for that difference. Why? Because the camera doesn't know there is no proper exposure. Read up on EV, as I said earlier, and you'll have people out there telling you, yes, there is technically a proper light value, and yes, for every scene there's like a, you know, an exposure value that is, you know, right or close to that. Again, all intents and purposes, we're deciding how I want it to look. If I were to take a picture in here, probably half the room wouldn't want to capture accurately. They'd be like, no, well, I need to bump up the exposure so that I can see people's faces. And then the other half of the room would say, well, no, you can't really see their faces right here. They should look dark. So I want it exposed as such. Correct? Is that a fair assumption? Right? Because the camera can just tell you 18% gray, not 18% gray. Overexposed, underexposed, based on this number, this reading, this calculation. It's your job, right? Learn to see the light, then learn to control the light. To tell your camera, no, this is not how I want my image to look. I want to override it. So this is how we override when we're in an auto mode. Does everybody know this button on their camera? If you shoot in auto mode, get very familiar with this. I shoot in the street. I shoot aperture priority 95% of the time because I use my exposure compensation. And a lot of cameras, you can go 3 stops lighter or darker, right, with your exposure compensation. Why do I need to go shoot manual unless it's a special case where I really, really, really need to get where I'm at? If I want to do a panning shot and I want to get motion, well, guess what? I shoot to shutter priority. And I turn my shutter speed at the speed I want to capture motion at. And then if it's too light or too dark, depending on how I'm metering, I compensate with my exposure. That right there, until you understand exposure, you really won't unlock how to create with intention. You have to know how light works. You have to know how your camera reads light. It's 2 different things. How light functions, how we see light, how your camera affects light, how you use your camera to harness that light and control it. I hate when people start on manual, learn it. Who here started on manual? Who here started on auto? 75% of you apparently haven't started because your hand stayed down. Got to start somewhere. Got to pick one. Pick whatever's easier for you. Some people learn better by throwing themselves into the fire. And the next person might go in manual and they're like, you know what? Not only am I not learning it, I'm getting frustrated, and now I hate this stupid camera that my husband bought me for Christmas, and why did he spend $5,000? I don't even like this stuff. Happens. But if that person would have started on auto and then said, wow, cool, oh, this is such a nice camera, wow, everything's out of focus in the background, but the images are so sharp. You know what? I want to learn how to control it, right? And then there's the other people that are like, you know what? I want to learn full control, I want to learn from the start. To each their own. Learn whatever's easier for you. There's no right or wrong answer. But you got to do the bottom part. You have to do the work. You have to look at your images. Break them down. See how each part of the exposure triangle affects the image. Who remembers from week 1, what's the trade-off with aperture? What does aperture control? The amount of light, but also the depth of field. What does the shutter speed control? The speed as far as the amount of time the shutter's open. What's the trade-off? Motion. Motion blur. ISO, what does that control? Sensitivity of light. What's the trade-off with the ISO? Graininess. It's a trade-off. Symbiotic relationship between all of these. If you change one, something else is going to be chained, right? It's like daisy chaining, and you go over here, well, guess what? You're coming with me. Remember my analogy of, hey, we have, we have to put 3 different buckets, and we have to reach 10 stones, and if we put 6 stones in the first one and 2 stones in the second one, well, how many stones do we have to put in the third? Right? We got to put 2 in the third, because we have to reach 10. When you look at a scene, ask yourself, what needs to be exposed in which way? What does that mean? It's different parts of a scene, right? It's not just about your subject. If I look out there, am I going to want to make sure that, hey, someone's sticking their face in the window? Am I going to want them to be exposed, right? Obviously, that's my subject. I want them to be exposed. Am I going to be paying attention to anything else? Yeah, maybe I have a bright spot way in the back. Maybe the light background is really, really, really bright, but my subject is backlit. Now I have to make a decision. Do I want it silhouetted? Do I want to show them? We're making decisions here. Evaluate if the lighting is balanced or irregular. Remember, balanced light here, if I were to take a picture of this group, you're all in the dark. You're all balanced because you're all one exposure value, right? A little bit different on the edges where you have the light spill, but it's all balanced. I can light you all together. Versus if I look outside and I have a headlight shining over here and I have a fluorescent light on the window over here and then complete darkness over here. And then you adjust your settings to create the mood or the impact to your taste. Because again, your camera doesn't have taste. Your camera just works on calculations. That's why we learn how to override the camera and to use the camera to our advantage, because your camera's not going to create mood. Your camera's not going to be like, wow, this is a clean shot, bro. Like, yeah, click it. Your camera's going to give you a reading, and it's up to you to decide, is this correct for what I want? Is this the mood? Is this the vibe? Is this the impact? Is this accurately depicting what I want? So I threw the settings on here so we can just kind of look at some of these. If anybody has any call-outs, anything that they want to point out, feel free. Any questions, right?
I have a question, this is way back, the metering, do all cameras let you select what metering you want, whether it's like centered or the whole, or, because I don't think my camera has that, I don't think I have that option, just different settings.
No, all cameras won't have metering modes. I'm going to say that just as a blanket statement because there's definitely cameras out there that you can't really control, or they might have limited metering, depending on the camera. It really depends. Today's mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, yeah, you're going to be able to change the metering mode.
And then they have different like auto.
Point and shoots may or may not. because point and shoots, again, it runs the gamut. You have some point and shoots that are very advanced, that are fully professional cameras, just on a smaller sensor.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, question.
Everything seems very sharp. Isn't it supposed to be a shallow depth of field? Or what kind of lens were you using?
Great question. He said this is f2, right? It's supposed to be shallow depth of field, right? And I love it, you answered your own question with your next question. What kind of lens were you using? Come on, my week 1 and week 2 people. What did we talk about? Relationship, right? Am I right up on this scene? Am I across the street?
Yes.
What kind of focal length? Is it compressed or is it wider? Wider, because a wider angle is inherently more what? In focus, right? So wider angle, it's f2. You see how sharp that is right there? And I'll tell you right now, I didn't focus. If I focused on this sign, then we got bigger problems. Me sitting here teaching you guys for 7 weeks. Gotta throw me out with the trash. My focus is here. Is that really shallow? Is that what you would think at f2 and this is across the street and this is on the same side of the street? Right? That's that relationship of wider angle is inherently going to be more in focus. If I were on a 85 millimeter, right? This is in the range of, I want to say around 35. If I were in an 85 and I moved back and framed it the same way, guess what? This would be way more out of focus because the relationship is now different. I'm now further than my subject. I'm more zoomed in, right? So we have that illusion of compression, and the distance is changing between camera, subject, even foreground element and background element. Let's meet for real. Lucky said, were you scared of using ISO? I love you at 4,000. Like, I'll shoot ISO 10,000, 52,800. I don't care. What's more important, getting the shot or having grain in it?
Well, given your druthers, you
Yeah. Photography is a balance. Photography really is a balance. And all of this, again, is working towards figuring out the right balance. Because, again, there's no proper exposure. There's not a proper level of anything, really. It's all the taste. It's art, right? What's your level of acceptable grain is going to be different than my level. And then there's definitely somebody who's going to be like, well, I have Topaz software, and I can use any ISO, and it takes it right out. So yeah, it's all the taste, but don't be afraid of ISO. I know that's another big thing that people learn, like, oh, keep your ISO as low as possible. Those are always the people that are coming up at night workshops asking me why their images are all blurry and their camera's shaking. It's like, well, you're at ISO 125. It's midnight. What are you doing? So they told me to keep my ISO low, and it's like, go where you need to on ISO.
Just back to that other photo. So
Mhm.
try to train my eye. That doesn't look great. I mean, am I just not seeing this?
She said,
I mean, if it's
you masterfully captured that with minimal grain at high ISO. Now, she said, it doesn't look grainy to me. All right, so now in looking at images, this is why, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually right on cue with what Lucky was saying about, being afraid to go ISO. Am I afraid to go high on ISO? No, because look at the ISO right there. Now, again, you guys know I love talking about distance and proximity. How far are you from this image? No, I'm saying for you guys right now, right? What are you, 12 feet from the image? Right? Are you going up looking at it like this? Because if you were, I mean, there's a little bit of grain here, and I could see some, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of. Are we looking at images like this unless we're on our phone? And then when it's on our phone, how big are they? And a billboard. You ever look at a billboard from 5 feet away? Looks terrible. Proximity. It's distance. This is why you shouldn't be afraid to go high on ISO. Because yes, some cameras handle it better. Sometimes some cameras, the image quality will degrade. On a newer camera body, like the one that this was taken on, they're made to handle ISO. They're made to really, really handle, going out there and photographing at high ISO, low light. The dynamic range is there, it holds the resolution. So great question though, because a lot of people will say, ISO 4000, oh my God. Wow, it's not, you know, I wasn't right up on them. If I were to photograph a person right here in the same light from 3 feet away, might be a little different, right? Because skin tone, so the proximity, where is everything?
That a higher ISO works with mist in there, obviously. It's kind of mist in the air. There's mist in the air. And that kind of works with
The glow, yeah. The mist in the air, atmosphere. What is that mist in the air doing? It's diffusing the light. Okay, see, you're putting the pieces together. You guys don't even know it. It adds a softness, right? It's diffusing. It's all those particles. It's like there's particles in the air that we can't see. Smog, when you're in a city, are we looking at clean air? No, we're looking at air. We can't see it, but its atmospheric conditions are affecting the light. There, it's just very visible. You can see it right up here. So what was the obvious effect here? You're going for what? Silhouette. Your light is there. No movement, right? Wanted it clear, sharp. So, decision making. Wanted depth, right? Bright, lower ISO. Don't need to go crazy low. I don't really overthink, you know. Don't read too deep into settings. I love when people on YouTube. I'll do camera gear reviews for our YouTube channel. And it's like people go up in there like, why were you at ISO 1600 in broad daylight? As if it's like discredits me as a photographer. It's like probably because I was just across the street in the shade and my camera can handle high ISO. So rather than sit there and play with my settings every 30 seconds, I'm just gonna put it at a ISO that can handle the shade, and then I can go out in the light. And because I'm shooting at f8, it can handle both. Don't read too deep into, understand it, but not everything, as you guys I'm sure are already seen. I'm showing you stuff that has very similar settings and it's having different effects, or sometimes different settings, and kind of doesn't look like it's much different of an effect. No, great question. Was there a lot of movement? No, everybody had their hands up, so there wasn't movement. Why did I do 1/4700th of a second? Because I didn't do 1/4700th of a second. My camera did. Aperture priority. Again, sometimes we need to know how to understand and know what settings are intentional and what settings aren't. This, not intentional, intentional, intentional. Why did I set it to aperture priority? Because I didn't care right here. Because 1/250th of a second would have given me the same result, right? 1/20,000th of a second would have given me the same result. Would I have to change the other settings to get the same light reading? Yes. But what was important to me here? f5.6. I wanted a decent amount of depth of field, right? What am I doing here? I'm out in the street, photographing. This was actually at a protest. So I wanted decent depth of field, but I also wanted latitude. And again, understanding my light conditions, understanding what I'm trying to get out of it, putting my camera in the best position so that I could go here and photograph one thing, here and photograph another thing without constantly changing my settings. So I had plenty of light, end of day, clear light, ISO 320, f5.6, let my camera do the rest. Good question. Spot metering or no? So I'll give you my personal approach to metering modes. Find a metering mode that works for you and with the way you photograph, and stick with it. For this reason, I use evaluative. I know my camera is going to read it, right? Anybody in here have like a friend where it's like you have like that telepathic, like, I know what they're thinking. I know if we walk up in this place and the person's annoying, all I got to do is like look, and they're already like, we're out. Come up with an excuse, we're leaving. The vibe's not here. That's the relationship I have with my metering mode. I know how my camera's going to see, right? So if I'm used to shooting for the past 20 years evaluative metering, And I'm looking at this scene through my camera. What am I saying that my camera is going to do? Anybody? What is my camera going to do? It's going to expose for the sky. Why? Because it's the biggest area, surface area-wise. And what is pointing right at me? The brightest light. The light is pointing right at me, right? So I already know how my camera is going to meter this. Now, take that a step further. If I wanted not silhouetting here, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care about having an properly exposed sky or having any detail in the sky. I don't care if the sky blows out to white. I really want to see people's faces, right? Am I going to change the way my camera meters? I won't. Somebody else might. Somebody might go spot metering. Again, everybody has their own flavor. I wouldn't. What am I going to stick with? I'm going to stick with the easiest way to photograph based on how I've been photographing my entire life. And that's boom, I know that my camera's going to give me a reading based on this. I'm going to automatically overexpose it 2 stops. And that's going to bring light back into this detail here. It's going to blow that out. Exposure compensation, right? Or if I were in manual and my camera, boom, gives me a reading, what am I going to do? I'm going to keep my shutter open extra long to get that extra light in to expose for them. Now, if I keep my shutter open extra long and I see that this dips down to 1/15 of a second, what am I going to do? I want it sharp, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to speed my shutter speed back up, right? So I close that window, and now I'm closing the window on the shutter speed, but now I got to get that light back in there, and I know I can't adjust my shutter speed. I can't adjust my aperture because I want to have a deep depth of field. What's the only thing that's left? I'm going to change my ISO. I'm going to make my camera sensor more sensitive to light so that it's going to introduce more light into the scene without going so low on my shutter speed to blur it. Are we seeing the relationship here? That tug of war. One thing's connected to the next. You change one, it's going to affect something else. Knowing what the benefit of something is and knowing what the side effect, right? Like we were saying, aperture. Boom, opening. Controls the depth of field, right? The amount of light that comes in, but the side effect is the depth of field. Any OGs here that remember this face? Old school event spacer right here. All right, he was an old producer, the event space. We took this this was taken upstairs in the 2nd floor event space a long time ago. What do we notice about it? Squares in his eyes. Talk to me. I'm gonna have a seat here. I want you guys to talk me through this one. Some kind of light reflection in his eyes. What do we call those? This is like a pop quiz. Catch lights. What about the background? Where's the shadows? Zero. Is the light wrapping around him? Is it soft light? What's the direction of the light? Soft light, right? Front, right? Front facing light directly on him. Why is it soft? Giant square, and how far is it probably from him? Very close, right? Because it's very soft, right? We're putting the pieces together here. Now let's look at the settings. Why ISO 1250 if I have all that light? I want depth of field. Hey, Lucky's putting it together. f6.7, that's a pretty rich aperture, right? The size of the opening, closed down, not a lot of light getting in, right? It's not like you're wide open. What's a property of light that we talked about today that would also lean into that? If we're at f6.7, right? We don't have a large opening to work with, right? We can't capture a lot of light through the opening, okay? And what kind of light is this? Look at the light source. Who knows what kind of light that is? Fluorescence. That's 4 fluorescent, right? Are these powerful lights? Not really, right? I mean, it's not like this, like here. Like that's gonna blind me. If I look up at a fluorescent, no. It might make me depressed. It won't blind me though. So what does that mean? Intensity. It's not that intense. We move it closer, we get more intensity, but it's not a super, super, super bright light. So what do I need to do? I have to account for that. This is the decision making that's involved. 1/250th of a second. Again, fluorescent. It's not a super bright light source. He's sitting, he's not moving, but I'll tell you exactly why it was at 1/250th, because probably had 3 cups of coffee already that day. I didn't have stabilization, and I just wanted to make sure that the image was still, right? We start to freeze motion around 1/60th. Don't write that down as an absolute, but that's where you start to freeze motion. But again, it's all relative. It depends on how much the subject's moving, how much you're moving. Is the light source from underneath? The light source, great way, that's a great question. What's a great way to tell where the light source is?
His eyes.
But what about his eyes?
Things in his eyes.
Where is the catch light situated? The center of his eyes. So what does that tell you? Right? Very, 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 yeah, very, very, very slight shadow to the nose. Yeah. But if you look at where the catch lights are, now, it's actually a great, great, great observation, right? If you really, really, really were to split hairs here, is it exactly centered? No. And that's a great call out. See how slight that is? Very, very, very slight, but it is there. You are correct. Look at, if you were to really measure the distance between bottom and top of his iris, it's probably slightly, it's direct for, if we're generalizing, yeah, it's directly in front of him, but yeah. If we're gonna go down to a molecular level, it's probably slightly. I'll be honest, it's probably not I don't think anybody's ever going for that shadow on their face as like by design, but he's like, you know what, I'm an amazing photographer. Look, sometimes it's where the chips fall.
Is there a possibility of flicker affecting your image if you're just
All right. Lucky asked a good question. I want to answer, but I kind of don't. He asked, is there a possibility of flicker? This is the whole section of light. You have intro, and then you have off in the weeds. Yes, these lights are flickering. It's not like light it's not just like emitting like a constant, like, yes, this light is flickering. Does it affect your shutter, mechanical versus electronic? All that, yes. We're gonna get there at a later point. I really wanna set the foundation and then get to all that stuff because it does matter. For somebody who's just trying to learn light and exposure, no, it doesn't matter until they turn on electronic shutter and they wonder why there's bands of light across my image. Then we'll get there. Right, 5.6, 500th of a second. ISO 160, you can see here, we got a lot of light here. Wanted decent depth of field, and again, nothing really crazy there. Sometimes there's more intent behind the settings. So this is a situation where there's more intent behind the settings. Why did I go F13? Did I go F13 because I wanted a rich depth of field? Yes, you sure?
no, you have trouble focusing.
So if I wanted motion, why would I set F13? Break things down. Break it down. Think how I'm thinking. Why? Why would a person do that? Why would a person set F13? Because if I'm shooting aperture priority, as I told you guys, right? I'm shooting aperture priority. What's the quickest way? The train's coming in, and I look across the platform, right? I didn't tell you the method was right or logical. I'm just telling you this is the way I shoot, which I'm telling you for a reason, because you shouldn't all be shooting the same way. You shouldn't all be having the same thought process. You should have your own flow and groove when you're taking photos. I'm showing you and demonstrating these methods and this information based on the way that I photograph, right? It's f/13, 1/15 of a second, because if I'm shooting aperture priority and I see that train coming in, and I'm like, damn, I want to capture that motion of the train. I want to get a picture. Platform's crowded, right? I wanted to get it, right? I wanted to get enough motion, but not, I don't want too much motion, because what happens if I get too much motion? The people will blur. If the shutter speed is too slow, what happens? People blur, heavily blur, and what else happens if my shutter speed is too slow? I can't handhold it. Nothing's gonna be, right? If there's motion, what else do we need? Word that starts with A, we mentioned it in the past 2 weeks. What do ships throw out in the water when they want to anchor? We need an anchor. If I don't anchor this image, right, and the entire image is shaky, does that really deliver impact? No, it doesn't. So what am I doing? How am I anchoring this image? I need still, sharp, non-moving objects to anchor my image, to then allow what's moving to carry the impact. The train's moving. The people, some of them, it's various levels of motion. So rather than trains coming in, I got to decide quick, I'm across the platform, I'm in aperture priority already, am I going to start changing my settings around? No. Because I understand how light and how exposure work, I know that aperture doesn't mean anything to me right here. You know what? I want a rich depth of field. Why? Because I'm across the platform. This is my decision-making process. I'm across the platform. I want depth of field. What do I also want? I also want motion. So if I get that depth of field, right, by stopping down, bigger F number, smaller opening, I get more in focus. And what does that do? Because I'm decreasing the size of the opening, what is my camera doing to account for that light that I'm losing?
ISO is increasing the ISO.
Not the ISO. It's increasing the shutter speed. We're losing light here. We got to get Michael back to not 50% gray, right? So we have to account for it. My camera has to account for it. So what is my camera doing? Whoa, we got to slow the shutter speed down. We got to leave the shutter open longer. Now, if I were to take this from f/13 to f/8, what would my shutter speed do? f/13 to f/8. What would my shutter speed do? Faster or slower? Faster. Why? Because we're getting more light. And if I want to keep the same exposure value, I have to then cut the amount of time the shutter is open. Does that make sense? Does that not make sense to anyone? Before I take any questions, does that not make sense to anyone? Anyone? Bueller? My ISO is not moving here. My ISO was set manually. My ISO is set manually. I don't like setting my ISO auto. I want to limit what my camera's doing to one thing. My ISO is easy. That's the easiest thing to set. I go outside right now. Okay, do I want to freeze motion or slow it down? What am I doing? Boom. This is what kind of light I have. Boom, my ISO is going to stay here. It's not changing. That's why I'll set my ISO manually. I change this because I'm already in that mode, and I know that this is daisy chained to this. So if I want to get this slower, instead of changing all my settings, I just have to boom. I know if I can just cut down the light getting in through the lens, my camera is going to open the shutter speed. There's memorizing and there's learning. That's when you learn, and it's not just, oh, well, but I have to do, why am I? No, because I already know. I know what's going. I'm understanding how my camera's reading the scene. Remember, I know how my camera's going to meter it. Is that a pretty even tonal range? Right? There's nothing really jumping out here. It's pretty even. Are we starting to put the pieces together of how all this puzzle works in conjunction?
I mean, not priority is dumping that randomly and doing faster scenes instead of cityscapes or stagnant. If you were one stop slower on that shutter speed or two, you wouldn't know that's a train. It would just be a blur.
It's a great point, Michael. Michael says, if you were one stop slower, right? If I slowed this down even more, you wouldn't even know that's a train. Think about what you just said. That's an intentional statement, right? If these people are too blurred, does that lean in to the impact, or does that lean away from the impact? It's up to you. It depends what you're going for. Exactly. If I'm in Grand Central Terminal and I have a person standing there, and say someone's just standing there and you look down and you're like, person hasn't moved, and like I saw a lady at a slot machine once in Vegas, and forgive me for this, I stood there for like half an hour because I was like Weekend at Bernie's. I'm like, her daughter brought her to the slot machine and she's dead there, and I'm witnessing Weekend at Bernie's in real life. And I stood there just to, like, I wanted to see her move. I could have done a long exposure and she would have been tack sharp, and I could have done like a 5-minute exposure and she was just like, right in front of like Blackbeard's Revenge slot machine, and everything else would have been moving. I miss Vegas. Here, it's the level of intent, right? 1/15 of a second. Is that super, super, super long? Nope. And again, it's all relative, right? You guys know I love talking relativity. It's relative. What is this relative to? As far as motion is concerned, right? Because motion is the side effect of shutter speed, right? So if we're talking motion, what is it relative to? What's affected in here based on this? The train? The speed of the train? And what else? The speed. What else in here is moving? There's two moving elements: the train and the people. Come on, Lucky, you act like. Sips coffee. And camera shake, which I have been known to do sometimes. So I'm dwelling on this one because this is a great example of that. All right, intentionality, finding that sweet spot, understanding light, but also understanding what we've already discussed, right? And what we will dive further in depth to, so I don't want to go too crazy because we do have a section on motion in this series. But paying attention, right? Making intentional decisions based on what? Was it based on the evaluative reading? Was it based on how your meter's reading? No, it was based on what? On what you wanted out of it, right? Well, Michael's like, well, if it's too slow, you can't tell it's a train. And guess what happens? We kind of lose the shot right there, right?
It's funny. I took a shot in Soho last night, the same scene, and I was doing motion blur, but it depends on how fast things are moving. If something's moving fast, and so you got to prejudge it.
Yeah, motion blur depends on how fast things are moving and how much. I will find the sweet spot. Now, I know 1/15 is a sweet spot for the subway. So write that down. 1/15, it'll give you a good jumping off point for the subway. Because you see you still get a nice drag. It's easy to handhold without too much camera shake, or without any at all if you have stabilization, if you have a Hasselblad, yeah, of course. But also you see there's not too much motion in the people, but at the same time, I do like a little bit of, because what does that do? Motion creates emotion. All right, here's our TLDR. If you guys didn't know, now you know. I love pizza. I eat it all the time. Exposure is like reheating pizza. You need the right temperature, right? Right temperature for the perfect amount of time in whatever desired heat source you're going to use to make the best slice of reheated pizza. Well, it depends. What is a good slice of reheated pizza? If anybody says microwave, you're a psycho. Please leave. If you microwave pizza, get out right now. My God. It just scares me. Like, Does anybody here microwave pizza? My God, how did I know? Get out. From cold. There's no excuse. You don't have a toaster. You have a Hasselblad and not a toaster oven. All right. God, Michael. Wow, that just hurt my soul. It all depends what you want. What's the best slice of pizza? How do you reheat? Do you want crispy? Right? Who likes soggy pizza? Some people like soggy. Some people want that pizza like, no, it can't. It's got to crunch. It's got to crumble. Right? You have to learn how all these different combinations create your idea of the best reheated slice of pizza. Okay? Does anybody cook in here? Anybody love to eat, cook, watch the Food Network? Right? How do you cook barbecue? Low and slow, right? Low temperature for a long time. What does that do? The meat is tender, it pulls apart. If you take that same short rib and you put it at 500 degrees for 20 minutes, is it still going to cook it? It will, but it's going to be tougher than the sole of Lucky shoes, right? It is the right combination. And what is the right combination? It's up to you. What effect are you going for? Do you want a crispy piece of pizza where the cheese is bubbling, right? High temperature, low time? Do you want it hot, kind of crispy, but not, burnt to a crisp? Okay, lower the temperature. And if you lower the temperature, what do you have to do? Increase the length of time. Are we getting the analogy, or did I force that one? Lucky, should I delete this slide? I'm preparing for I'm going to speak at Adorama tomorrow.
If you ever watch a pizza guy and you say, don't make it too hot, or I want it really hot, or whatever, how do you know that, how does he know that the temperature of the pizza is exactly what you just asked for? The same way that you know the result you're looking for. He looks at that up and he gets a sense of, at this temperature, for this amount of time, when I eyeball that pizza, I'm going to see whether it's bubbling or not. You just said that word before.
Yeah.
If it's bubbling, it's ready to go, perfect, pull it out. If the exposure, the ISO, the angle of deflection, wherever you're standing, with the assembly, maybe it's coming at you, maybe it's across, you know it's bubbling, it's perfect right now, pull it out. And don't microwave.
That's the most passionate I've seen you in all 3 parts of this series, Lucky. My God. Get that man a pizza. Wow. More pizza analogies. Right? Everything's to taste. There's no right or wrong exposure. Yeah, there's exposures that are good, better than others. Yeah, this is underexposed or overexposed. Right? How many times do you want an underexposed picture? Do you want an overexposed picture? Do you care if your sky's blown out? Right? It's all to taste. So we're going to wrap this thing up the best way I know how. What brave soul wants to guess the settings? Let's see how close you can come. ISO, aperture, shutter speed. So he said, and again, there's no, that's exactly what I want to hear. You guys ever watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And what do they want you to do? They want good television. So they tell you in production to talk your thoughts out. They don't want you to just be up there and like, see, final answer. They want to hear, well, no, I used to read this book at my grandparents' house every weekend, and the main character was a unicorn that microwaved pizza and had a Hasselblad. We lose him. He said, long shutter speed because there's no people, right? One possible case. What's the other possible case? There were no people. All right? Who thinks there's people and they were just blurred out by long shutter speed? Raise your hand. 2? You guys were the ones that experimented in the 60s, right? 70s, all right, 70s. I experimented in the 90s through the, what year are we in? No. All right, there were no people here. I'll tell you that much. So there's no people. Going back earlier, come on, you've been using your brain all day. Second row back there, right? What did we talk about? What was your one question you asked earlier? The distance, the focal length. How can we possibly tell focal length? It's very sharp. It's very sharp. He's thinking wide angle, very sharp. This is the quiet, he's just sneaking under the radar, but he's got all the answers. Right? Very sharp, wide angle. I like the way you're going. Let's see. Let's pull a little more out of this. What are we thinking? Low. Oh, low aperture. So you're saying smaller aperture. Smaller aperture. You're saying wide open, like 2. Okay. Who agrees with him? You think wide aperture? So smaller f number, like f2 he says. So who's saying wide aperture? So big aperture. Who's saying small aperture? All right. Shutter speed. Where are we at shutter speed? So we should have 2 camps here. Our wide aperture people, if it's wide open, right? We're saying if it's f2, the shutter speed is very high. Like how high? 1/250th? Is 1/250th enough for f2? No, it'll be higher. 1,000th? 2,000th? Okay. So f2, 1/2000th. Now where's our ISO? What kind of day does this look like? Very dull. You see how you guys, when you're forced to use your brains, this is what you should be doing to your images instead of doing them to mine. Although if you want to, analyze my images for me and give me feedback, I'd appreciate it. You save me a hell of a lot of time. This is what you do to an image. So what ISO are we saying? It's kind of cloudy. We're wide open. We're at 1/2000th of a second. 1/2000th is fast, right? So even at f2, maybe lower. 1/1000th? Okay. And what ISO? At least 1,000? 800? All right. So how do we feel about f2, 1/1000th, 800? Ballpark? Do you know why you guys are actually really, really, really good on that and really close, and you pieced it together as a class? Because of the concept of exposure value, right? What do I mean by that? A little slower, right? Way lower, right?
Well, wait a minute. Not way low.
1,000 but okay, couple, yeah, but way lower in terms of we got ISO, we got stops, yes, we got ISO, there's a couple stops we could hit along the way, right? So you're right, not way lower. In terms of light, yes. For our beginners, boom, because they're going to go in there, they're going to see ISO 400, ISO 500, ISO 640, ISO 800, right? It's not as big a jump. You are correct in that. But for beginner purposes, there's a couple ISO stops in between. When I say stops, I don't mean stops of light. I know it's very confusing. Slower shutter speed, right, than what we initially said, but it's also, right, less sensitive to light. So it kind of balances out, right? Because if we went with a faster shutter speed, and so whatever you guys gave, what those settings spit out, is probably going to be ballpark. You're not going to be far off, right? Even the most impressive part was that you said f2. Because a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to say, what are they going to look at? We're going to look at the details. Details here. And when we're talking about depth of field, what are the 2 distinct areas of detail we want to look at? Foreground, background, okay? We're all problem solvers. We're detectives when we're trying to learn photography. We're figuring out light, we're figuring out depth, we're figuring out how all these things play together. Back of the frame, that's your front of the frame. Pretty sharp, right? Pretty sharp. The fact that you said f2 is really impressive. That's really impressive.
If that's a wide angle lens, then do we know if it's a wide
So this is, yes, this is a wider angle lens. So this was shot at, I believe, 35. Now, use what you know. Anybody? Anybody want to start on aperture? Shutter speed is 1/2. You said that confidently. Shutter speed is 1/250th. He was so confident. We're going to lock that in. That's your final answer. You guys can't change it. 1/250th of a second. All right, let's build this equation out. So now we're at 1/250th. Does anybody really, really, really disagree? Or are we going with that as a class? We're going with it? All right, speak now, forever hold your peace. 1/250th. Somebody else give me aperture based on that. Not him. Let's hear somebody else. Aperture, where are we at? 5.6? Why are we at 5.6? Pretty sharp? All right. Is there anything else we're looking at? Background? Is there anything maybe, right, that isn't sharp in the image? The fingers. 2.8? All right, we're going to override that 5. We're going to go with 2.8. Do we like 2.8? We don't, any wider, or is that good? We're going to have to look at the focal length, right?
Could be a little bit of a 85 or even a 50, but it's certainly not a 24.
What does it look like? It's not a 24Y.
24 would be way wider than the last shot, for example.
Right?
And this is much narrower.
Right?
The lines will be closer.
The, the lines, even if we use the skew tool to straighten the lines on a wider angle shot, what are we going to see? It's going to pull the distortion. It's going to pull away. There's going to be distortion in the faces. Looks about like a 50, right? This looks like a standard, nice standard range. 2.8, 2/50th of a second. What's our ISO? When was it shot? How was it shot? Daytime? Nighttime, right? What do we see here? Is this a really sharp, clean image, or is there a lot of grain there? Everybody just ran the New York City Marathon yesterday. I'm a runner, so. There's grain here, a lot of grain. Right, ISO's higher. So what's our ISO? 4,000? We like that? Boom! There you go. Hey! You just want a slice of Lucky's pizza. Right? 2.8? It's not the answer, right? I'm not looking for the correct answer. It's you guys would be savants if you're in here giving me on this entire scale. It's the method, right? It's the thought process. It's saying, no, 2.8, right? It's looking at, wow, this thing's in focus, this thing's out of focus, okay? And what did we say, 1/250th we said? I'm throwing you should not be in a beginner class. You're gonna have to come help me teach one of these lessons, because, all right, he's banned from answering. That's like the person who messes up the curve in every class on the test. All right, without messing up the curve. You know what she just said? That I love you guys. Wow, you guys are making me feel like I'm really like, I have a great class. Based on how you shoot. Can I say that again? Based on how you shoot, somebody, thank God, is paying attention. Humans, we're creatures of habit, right? We have methods. We get in a flow. We shoot a certain way. Now we're getting somewhere. That's the biggest piece of information any photographer is going to give you. How do you shoot? She said, based on how you shoot. All right, continue. 1.4. All right. Now, let's fact check it, right? Funny, we got a picture of Trump opening. Like, let's fact check the picture of. Farce, God. 1.4, does that jive? What are we looking at? Out of focus versus in focus. Are we looking at distances? What focal length do we think? Is it kind of standard? Is it kind of not? Is it portrait? What level of compression? What's a great, what is the, there's a line in a space of this image that's giving you a timeline to your answer. I'll help you out. Here to here. It's sticking straight out. It's easy to see the fall off, right? You're able to see from blurry to sharp, aren't we? So the same way that she said, based on how you shoot, use the information that's available to you, right? You have a connection. It's not like there's something in front and there's something behind. You're like, well, I don't know how far in front that flower pot is. It could be 10 feet, it could be 2 feet. You know how long it is from here to here, give or take, right? His hands are about that, no, I'm joking. How long is it probably? About 3 feet, right? Average? So F1.4.
Based on earlier classes with you, his hand is way too big, so therefore it has to be wide angle close up.
Based on earlier classes with me, his hand is way too big. It has to be wide angle close up. Okay. So how does that change our settings? Let's look at the light. What kind of light here? Daylight. Is it strong? What are we looking at? Are we looking at our shadows? What's the easiest place to see shadows in this image? Boom. You guys were going here, right? There, right? It's a nice, right? What is that? A nice gradient, right? Very soft, right? So, based on how I shoot, what is my ISO probably around? Overcast day. What would you set your ISO at on an overcast day? 200? Well, you also microwave your pizza, so Michael, we're throwing that out. You microwave your pizza and you shoot ISO 200 on a cloudy day, 800 ISO for me. That's not a lot of, it's diffused, right? I'm gonna make you a t-shirt, ISO 200 and microwave pizza. I gotta put together some kind of design, Mike. I'm gonna gift it final week of class. ISO 800 sound good? All right, shutter speed. 1/400th. All right, again, close, right? Ballpark, 2.8. 200th, ISO 500. Makes sense, right? All right, we're wrapping this thing up. What do we think? Shutter speed slow, why? Because there's motion blur, right? What kind of depth is in here? Now think about that subway picture. Right? That was 1/15 of a second. Right? The light doesn't matter. We're only talking speed, motion, speed as it relates to motion. Does this look about the same amount of motion blur? What am I not factoring in the subway that's out here? There's light, the amount of light, the intensity. Is this outside? Yeah. Amount of compression. It looks pretty standard, nothing too crazy, right? Nothing really crazy telephoto, right? Because this is in focus, this is in focus, right? The sign in the back is in focus, exactly. Look how sharp this is. And you can literally read the letters on the sticker, right? So what is that going to tell you? Is it really compressed? Is it really telephoto? Nope. Standard. Standard, maybe a little wider. Okay? How fast is he moving? He's walking a dog, right? Dog speed. Lucky's like, nothing gets by me. Give me another question. Give me another question, coach. All right? He's not moving that fast. So shutter speed. Give me the shutter speed. Where are we at? 1/30th. All right, I like that. 1/30th. Sounds about like me. ISO. Is it really, really bright day? Does it look like maybe the end of the day? 800 ISO, 1/30th of a second. And then what's our aperture at? Easiest one. Ballpark. 5.6, someone said? 5.6? F4, 60th, ISO 2000. Again, if you're off on one, it kind of, some of these answers, because understanding exposure value, it's really how you're getting to the answer that's helping us learn, right? Because when you look up exposure value, what is it going to tell you? One of the main takeaways from it is going to be, I can change all three of these and what? Take a picture that looks exposure-wise exactly the same. And what's going to change? The depth of field, the motion, right? But if you were to look at it, close your eyes and open, as far as brightness, tonal ranges, it's going to be exactly the same. Does that make sense to everybody? Take a second and process that if it doesn't make sense. All right? You can, remember, stones in buckets. You can put extra stones in here. Does that mean you're going to have extra? Nope. That means it's just the more stones that go in here, the less stones I have to divide up between these two. If I take stones from here and put it into there, it has to be accounted for someone else or somewhere else. One final one. You know I like to throw in like a nice, keep it spicy for you guys. You're welcome. Thank you for coming out. Somebody take a shot. All right, I'm going to say F4. I'll throw that out there. Knowing the way I shoot, I'm going to say this was F4. I truly don't remember. You know what? Here, I'll test myself. I'm going to say F4. ISO 1600. 1/30th of a second. All right, there you go. See, I was going to say higher. Should have. Does that jive? Does that make sense? This was a panning shot, which makes it a little different, again, because now it's not just him moving. Where am I moving? I'm moving with him. And what's happening to this distorted face right here? It's because she's in the foreground, she's out of focus, and she's moving this way. He said, were you expecting the lady to pop in the picture? No, I wasn't. No, happy accident. I was panning the bike, and I was actually with her, and she committed the cardinal sin of walking in front of a photographer doing a panning shot. And you know what? Kind of dig it. Can't plan for everything. Thank you guys again for coming out. That's all we have for you. If you guys do have any questions.